Hello and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast. I'm absolutely so excited to introduce my guest today, Devon Kerns. Today we talk about using plant medicine to see who we are behind the veil. We talk about what is the veil, and plant medicine is not the only way, it's one way. This podcast is so deep and it's so profound. This is the only time I'm prefacing a podcast in this way, but this is not the type of podcast where you can dip in and out, multitask, be in and out of the car. This really requires undivided attention from beginning to end. It's so good. It's so profound. It's got so much information. Devon is a teacher and a contributor on Insight Timer. He's an entrepreneur. He has his hands in so many nonprofits and boards. He works with entrepreneur, Fortune 500 leaders. He is well into meditation. He's done over 100 plant medicine journeys, and he guides other people through their plant medicine journeys, from getting them ready and prepared, sitting with them, and helping them integrate. I am so excited to bring this information to you. This is such a deep podcast. If you find that you're tuning out or getting lost here and there, I encourage you to stay with the podcast, stay engaged, and see if you can pull out all of the beautiful wisdom and insight that is in this podcast. So I'd love to hear your feedback and comments. I want to thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I did. Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast, a place to explore possibility through mindfulness, movement, and self-discovery. Our intention is to deliver insight and inspiration while fostering conversations that are genuine, unfiltered, and deeply human. We hope you will enjoy today's episode. Hey, Devon, welcome to the Connected Community Podcast.
Hello. So happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. I love what we're going to talk about. I love that we're having this conversation. I feel really connected to you on a personal level and with the topic that we're going to discuss today. So thank you for your time today.
I'm so excited. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So today we're going to dive into using plant medicine to see who we are behind the veil. Before we get there, I want to introduce you. And I'm like, I don't even know how to introduce you because you have your hand in like a million different pots. You have vast experience with psychedelics. You've done over 100 psychedelic experiences with multiple modalities. You facilitate plant medicine and integration for people and education. You have over 100,000 minutes of meditation, which is a lot of meditation. And you're supporting lots of people through their integration process. And then you're a teacher and contributor to Insight Timer. So if people haven't checked that out, that would be an amazing way for them to connect with you and your medicine in that way. And then like you have a whole another box that you're into, which is the business development, entrepreneurship, coaching, leading people, working with leaders, having your hand in nonprofits and working with Fortune 500 leaders and political leaders. And oh my gosh, there's so much. So like, who is Devon?
I can assure you I'm none of those things, but they are things I've done. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey. I sarcastically say I'm the laziest, slowest person I know, which is partially why it's taken over 100 psychedelic experiences to gain anything, or why I enjoy entrepreneurship is because I've discovered that leveraging time of really smart people is way better than me trying to be smart. And and we actually get things done because I'm not a big doer in the world. I'm I guess you could say a hyper visionary.
Yeah.
And part of that vision is really only reflected to me or through me from someone else. My greatest gift is the vision when I get to hold space for someone else. And so we always end up partnering on different things, and I get to get involved in different aspects of business or charities or life. And I love it. I mean, it is just such a blessing to be able to create in this world and play some role of hopefully service to people, and maybe as we play a little bit bigger these days, the whole planet.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So let's talk about plant medicine. What does this mean to you? Using plant medicine to see who we are behind the veil. That's a huge statement.
You know, I can really only speak from my experience and partially of those that have joined me on that journey of using these psychedelic medicines, particularly plant medicine, which I personally trust the most over man-made, but I've had incredible journeys on those as well. The first one that I ever did was at a deep level that wasn't in a party setting, right? The typical answer that we get from people. I'll never forget my buddy Matt Hudson, who you know, came to his first journey. He's like, "Oh, dude, I've done it all. I've done it all." And after the first round of ayahuasca, he sits up and he goes, "What was that?" I'm like, yeah, exactly. So that's kind of it. I mean, to describe my journey simply on that first one, I came out of it after some intense visuals, some deep experiences that were some earthbound, some not earthbound, and the dots that were connected to my life pre-medicine. One experience behind that is the owl. The owl has followed me since I was 21 years old. I had a really intimate experience with it. 2:00 in the morning here in Colorado. It's icy, it's snowy, and this snow white owl lands in my lane, and I've never seen an owl before, and its wings are spread.
Wow.
And I am trying not to hit it first and foremost, but then as I slow down and I move around it, it's locked eyes with me and I've locked eyes with it. You fast forward, 2 more owls come into my life just a few days later after I'm starting to question myself, as we do usually. And then 2 years later, I hadn't forgotten about it, and I'd really started diving deeper into animal medicine and following that. This Native American gentleman walks up to me in the middle of Starbucks, don't know who he is. This giant human walks up and puts his hand on my arm and goes, "Tell me about the owl."
No way.
Pardon me? And he goes, "Someday in the future," I'm fast forwarding through all this, it gets deeper, but he goes, "Someday in the future, I want you to go back to your car and I want you to get out of your car and sit with the owl and ask it, what are you trying to tell me?" And I'm thinking, I mean, I'm 23 at the time going, time machine? Do you know about something that I don't know about? How am I going to go back and do that? And he just smiles, asks if he can do a drum ceremony around me in the middle of the Denver Tech Center.
Wow.
So I'm standing there at lunchtime getting this drum ceremony around me, and I'm going,
in
what
Starbucks?
Is happening outside of Starbucks in the parking lot? And I'm going, what is happening? Like, it still gives me chills to this day, right? So you fast forward, and our friend Katie Hilburn, you know Katie, right?
I don't.
Oh, you don't know Katie. Our dear friend Katie Hilburn says, "Devon, you've committed to coming to the ceremony. You're all in. You can't back out now." And I'm like, okay. So I go down to Boulder. I'm walking up and down Burl Street, trying to figure out what I'm doing. And this woman calls me in and says, "Hey, you need some work. You need some healing." And I'm like, "Well, everybody here needs healing." She goes, No, I need to clear your chakras. You're about to go do a big journey." And I'm like, she goes, "Yeah, you're doing I." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, okay." So I sit down, she does the clearing, she goes, "Ask about the owl." Now, keep in mind, 23, and now I'm 37 at the time, maybe somewhere around there. So we're 10 years later, more than that, we're 13 years later. And she looks at me and she goes, "Be sure to ask about the owl." I walk out the front door of this place. There's a guy walking by with an owl shirt on. I go and meditate in the woods. There's a owl right above me, hooting. And then we get to ceremony space. And Katie, who's meticulous, lays out all of the mats of the people she invited. A gentleman the month prior to had come and done Aya, had this vision, painted the vision and hung it up in that room. And my mat was directly underneath it. And it was a white snow owl.
Oh my gosh.
And so before I even hit the ceremony, I'm going, what is happening, right? So of course we get, there's 3 to 4 rounds in Aya usually. for those that don't know. And I'm laying there and I'm in the second round and I'm like, all right, show me what this is all about. Like, literally tell me. And the next thing you know, I'm back in my car, my white car, at 21 years old, pulling up to that owl. Get out of the car, look at the owl. The owl then just sends me into this fractal universe. And from there, it was game on. I mean, literally sat next to the Beatles as they were writing Let It Be. I was sitting in the pyramids. I was traveling all over the world, then all over the universe. And all I can tell you is that was more real than me right now. And that experience with that owl was so potent that the leap it showed me right after that of not only are we one. So as an example, when I was sitting next to the Beatles writing Let It Be, I was like, what I want to write something like that. And the whisper in my ear was, you have. Not that I was a Beatle, but that we collectively are in this unity of this collective consciousness. And it's always streaming through all of us that are open like they were. And that was my first real behind the veil of the oneness of everything. And you cannot leave that experience from a place of belief or faith. You leave that experience knowing. And the difference between knowing and faith to me, and knowing and trust, and knowing and belief, they're universes separating belief and knowing. And for me to know that this game, I don't understand it, I don't intellectually get it, but I know that I know that I know. And that fundamentally changed everything. And so every time you end up behind the veil in meditation or whatever it may be, beyond this three-dimensional time and space, there's unification, and you can take the worst person on the planet and find yourself in that person. You can find the enlightened one on the planet and find yourself in that person, and there is no separation. And from that, you experience deep empathy and tremendous drive for change. And you also find the purposelessness of it all, which we won't go down that rabbit hole right now, but it's pretty potent, right? So that first, and that's one of now almost 40 Aya ceremonies where I've had that level of depth, and they've all been different, but always behind that thing we call the veil. And to me, when you can experience that and move into knowing, people feel that shift in you. And I can assure you, my entire circle of human beings, they talk about me pre-Aya and post-Aya. And the simplest terms is, Devon used to say a lot and it meant nothing. Now he says almost nothing and it means everything.
I love that.
And I will take that all day long, right? I would rather feel and sit and have potency than blabber about nothing.
Yeah. And so that was your first experience. And then what have the subsequent ones been like? Do they have a similar vein?
I look at it like chapters of a book in preparation, right? This entity we call grandmother. For those that may be just tuning in for the first time, we reference the medicine of Aya, this vine and bark, as grandmother, the access beyond that which is just Mother Earth's wisdom. She had a plan for me. She was definitely calling me, and she had a plan for me. And that plan was to get me to not just break through this earthly 3D veil, but a consciousness veil to which I've ended up. Most of my journeys after that have never had any kind of earthbound experience. I've predominantly been in dimensions, or other universes that potentially were also dimensions. This is where I would fail miserably at trying to explain it rationally.
Yeah.
Other than one of the most profound being a visiting this place more often than not for about a year in multiple ceremonies, not just grandmother, but on LSD, on Bufo, on all kinds of different experiences, right? I went back to this place for a year, and I call it the crystalline planet or crystalline dimension. And there were many beings and many entities. We're talking tens of thousands. It felt like an auditorium, and I was sitting there facing what I would define in human words as a council, and getting downloads and again fractal information from them that I'm still uncovering to this day, which is a part of the reason I ended up doing Insight Timer, is just for me to be in practice of the articulation of what wants to come through me, that I believe came from these experiences that are not of this world, but serving in terms of the intention of it all, right? And how the origin of the consciousness that birthed this three-dimensional experience we call human, what that origin was, what that intention was, what the intention of forgetting was on the planet. We've all been under this psychosis for quite some time. There was intentionality in that encoded in us, and now we're in what we call, as many of you have heard, the awakening, not the woke, but the awakening.
Yeah.
I call it the remembering, to avoid confusion as to what woke and awakening are meaning. But this deep, profound remembering, and there are very few people I encounter, regardless of where they are on the spectrum of life, who don't find that knower.
Yeah.
Even no matter how deep it's been hidden, there's something that gets a resonance with them when we speak, and to me that is it's my only mission, is cracking open that soil, and it's not even planting a seed, because that's not my job in the world, but cracking open that soil so the seed that was planted a long time ago, maybe even before this lifetime, can bud, right? And we're all there, and it's happening whether I do anything or not, happening whether you do anything or not. It's just fun to ride that wave and be somewhat aligned to what I'm called when I'm called.
So we really don't need plant medicine to break through that veil. It's just a method or a breakthrough path, correct?
No question, that is true. This goes back to me being lazy, right? If I can go in and purge a little bit and take a medicine or experience something, the key, and you and I talked about this before even hitting start on this podcast, is integration. It is fun. It is potent. It can have some change if you participate in really profound deep breath work or meditation and you unlock something. But if you don't practice what's on the other side of what you just unlocked, and you're not in devotional practice to that, it gets lost. One of the most simple things I've ever heard was, if Buddha was Buddha, why did Buddha have to meditate? Well, Buddha was Buddha because he meditated, right? It's that concept. And for me, plant medicine is like giant steps on the staircase of life, versus slowly and progressionally getting there through hours of devotion that I don't have time for. I can't go to the Himalayas and sit on one of these mountains forever, because it's not my calling. And to be honest with you, and this feels like a left-hand turn here, but it's really not. I'm not doing this to become enlightened. I'm doing this to have one hell of a human journey. And if I can align my being and align that oneness to an unapologetic human, this experience, I mean, the everything you taste tastes better. Everything you do is more vibrant and fulfilling. And so I don't do the medicine for the waking up part. I do the integration for the remembering of what the medicine taught me. And then I bring that into the fullness of my human journey. And I'm not trying to escape the human journey using the medicine or meditation or spirituality. I'm going head first into it.
Yeah, I love that point, because I think sometimes people use plant medicine as an escape from reality into another way of being or way of thinking. And I have seen some, even though psychedelics aren't technically addictive. I've seen people have this addictive type of personality around the psychedelics where they need it and they're grabbing onto this experience and they're wanting to hold on to the experience. But the psychedelic experience is like this teeny tiny piece of the experience. And then, like we had talked about before, the integration is this massive chunk that comes after. And so if you're just doing the plant medicine without the integration, then you're missing the whole point of all the gifts and all the gems that are in there. One of the things I loved about when we talked before was that you said, who's responsible for integration? And it was a different twist on the way that I think of integration, and probably a lot of people, because I think that we tend to require the people that are serving the medicine to give us that integration experience. And on some level, I do think that there is somewhat of a level of responsibility for them to be able to provide that and give access to that, because some people don't have access to that. They don't have a network. They don't have community. They don't even have the resources or the skills or the knowing of how to do that integration for themselves. But what you said was that we are ultimately responsible for our integration. Even if somebody gives us all of the tools, it's our responsibility to use them and to walk down that path. And so I would love for you to share more about that, because I think we want other people sometimes to do our work for us, or push us on the path, or motivate us, or, keep us on the correct path.
Yeah. I always kind of come from a foundation of like, if it was working, we would be doing it. And so there isn't a simple answer here, and this isn't a one and done, because I do agree that if you're going to be the giver of the tool that could blow someone's mind, literally, maybe a little support would be great, right? A few follow-up calls, a place where people can gather, even if it's virtual, so they can share experiences afterwards. And it is really conducive and supportive to hear other people's stories, because you don't feel crazy, right? Like, I mean, I can't begin to tell you where I've been, and I still don't know that I've found people who have been there. So I'm kind of like, what do I do with this? However, there's two parts to this that I feel. When we go back to your earlier reference around people constantly going back to the medicine, right? In my case, I've done 40 ceremonies. I've done a lot of psychedelics. There are a lot of reasons for that. One, I was called back to it. I'd say half of my Aya ceremonies, as an example, have been for Devon. But I was so excited to share it with the world, and I'm unapologetic about it, that I've even had an Uber driver come join me for a ceremony. But everybody you talk to, and you're one of these individuals too, right? When you share it with people, they kind of are like, will you come with me? And so now, am I really there to support them? Not really. I'm there to go through a journey. And if I get to hold their hand along the way, then I will be there. But it's their journey ultimately. So I don't interfere with it, but I love being in the room with them because they asked me to be. So the other half of my ceremonies, because we've either done private ceremonies or other people have come from around the world to come and do it, right? And so not everything is a one and done by any means, but the intentionality as to why you're going in the first place. So let's start there. I always encourage people to go into these ceremonies. If you feel like you've got a lot of baggage, a lot of blockage, sure. We reference a lot of these medicines as, 10 years of therapy in 8 hours.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. I'm not a huge fan of therapy because I'm not a person that knows how to live in my past. I've been through a ton of stuff in my life. I just don't think it serves me to cling to it. And in fact, what it does is it creates an environment of coddling where I get coddled because of what I've been through, and I don't really get to move forward because I've surrounded myself with people who feel sorry for me or who also are just constantly talking about their past. I'm not that person. So that's not to offend anybody else. That's just not who I am. Now, when people come and they want to do medicine with me or around me, I encourage them to do a couple things. If you have an intention of healing, maybe don't focus on the way you're broken. And that's just a projection of me onto them, because I don't believe that we're broken. I think we all have stories. I think we all have possibilities. And if you want to see what really is keeping you from your highest self, then you need to have an intention of what that looks like, the outcome you desire that this medicine can show you. So in other words, if you go in saying, if you had 8 hours with God, let's just pretend you could. This opens up the door to talk to the collective consciousness, the universe, whatever. You had 8 hours on this medicine to sit face to face with God. Would you go, could you heal that boo-boo for me? I got this little cut on my arm. Or would you go, geez, I got 8 hours with God. Show me what this is all about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from the intention of how big is this game? How big can we play? You're not going to just get shown the bigness because it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. What's going to happen is whatever's blocking you from seeing how big you're supposed to see in that particular journey will get removed. So the healing is an automatic byproduct of an outcome that's bigger than the healing itself. Now, I position it that way because if you go in with an intention of kind of show me an outcome that is positive, that is a direction I want to head with my life, that shows me how powerful I can be, shows me how giving I can be, shows me how loving I can be, whatever that outcome is, it will do the work to remove whatever's there. And then when you're integrate the bigness, don't integrate the healing.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why. What I've watched time and time again is when we go into sharing circles as an example, and we talk about, man, I purged this abuse from my father. And then you start sharing the story of what it was like to be abused by your father. What ends up happening, if we look at judgment as like the concrete that trapped this cellular memory in your cells, if you do a plant medicine, it can crack that open and you will purge that. You will release that. It may be through tears, maybe through all kinds of different methods that you release that energy that was trapped. But the next morning or the next few days, you keep telling the story of what was healed.
Mm-hmm.
You can't help but judge that experience all over again. So you end up sealing that emotional experience back into your body.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is tough for me to want people to share what was healed versus focusing their integration on a daily practice of the largest outcome that they had. Maybe it was the relief after letting go. Maybe it was the love that they felt. Maybe it was the oneness that they felt. And so if it was Saturday, Sunday morning, you woke up with all this love in your heart. Monday morning, focus on the love. Tuesday morning,
Mm-hmm.
focus on the love. Wednesday morning, focus on the love. You can bring and carry forward with you through devotion the peak state instead of the broken state.
Yeah.
And we have a tendency to bring the broken state forward, and then we hold each other in that broken state, particularly in the spiritual community, and then we have to go back and heal again and heal again. And the addiction is really in the healing. It's not in the medicine.
Yeah.
Because I'm always broken. I'm perpetually broken.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen when you focus your energy on the integration of the peak state or the expansion, the expansive state.
Yeah. It somewhat makes me think of this example of like if somebody made us super angry that day and whatever, it wasn't even that big of a deal. But then we call up 6 of our friends and we tell them how pissed off we are about that thing that happened. And then each time we talk about it, it's creating this body reaction and our nervous system's freaking out. And also it's creating this stronger neural pathway.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were to actually just to sit with the anger and focus on it, you can't even hold on to it. Like if you try to meditate and to grab onto the anger, you can't. Like you can't stay in that state. And so when you're talking about that example, that was what came to me was we just continue to drive forward this old way of thinking, this old pattern. And then it's just like we're not breaking away from that old neural network and neural pathway that we're trying to avoid.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. I was watching this interview, and you guys can go check it out. It's on Gaia TV. It's I can't remember his name right now, but he's an architect, and he was originally talking about this architecture that he started building and how the octagon shapes or 130-degree angles can help with autism and all kinds of different things. We're not supposed to be in 90-degree angles. So that's partially why you see ceremony spaces that are more circular. He goes, the circle ones don't really work as well either because they're so fast, meaning a circle creates more energy spin. Whereas when you have a slight angle, it breaks it up just enough, but it doesn't trap it. And so it was a really interesting conversation. But towards the end, it's on Regina's interviews on Gaia TV, and she's asking, well, you have this interesting concept around karma and how we can heal our karma, or whatever. And he goes, well, I don't know that it's karma. And this is a guy from Egypt. He's this PhD out of Egypt that he's kind of the head of all PhD programs for architecture. So he's not Joe Schmo talking about this. He's not Devon talking about this. He is like legit. And he also, you can tell he just has access to so much information from a spirit realm, from a Akashic record realm. You can just tell he's brilliant from that download perspective. And this might be maybe for those that have dabbled in plant medicine, and maybe you've experienced a bit of the like ego death or the void when you go to a place where there's no thing, no time, no space. And he's referencing that regarding karma and healing. And it goes back to your point around just taking time for space, right? And so we end up today, you can see it very obviously using the interwebs, the reactionary state the world is in.
Yeah.
On large scale when we're talking about war, and on micro scales when we're talking about comments in our feed, right?
Yeah.
And the news feeds and everything else. The when you catch yourself in these patterns and these what the world might call karmic patterns, he was saying what happens in time and space is that the individual atoms of you, they are not going somewhere, but they're actually returning to the void and coming back out. And so on an individual basis, and we've seen this in quantum physics, again, this is kind of nerdy, but I love quantum physics. And when I was growing up in school and you were growing up in school, we might have been taught that the proton and neutron revolving around an atom used to just spin, basically, around the nucleus. They were able to slow it down enough to see that it's actually disappearing and reappearing. So it's going somewhere out of our three-dimensional time and space and ending up somewhere. And that's the way they reference it. Well, where is it going? His point from his genius was everything returns to the void and expands back out in this holographic experience, right? So you return back to the no thing, and every atom returns back to the no thing. So if you pause for a certain amount of time and these atoms are popping in and out of that void, right? If you're talking about 1 trillion atoms doing it in nanoseconds, it takes a full minute for everything to have gone to the void and come back out. And I thought, wow, I think I get where he's going with this. If you are reactionary in life, if you have this baggage with you, if you have this stuff you're carrying, and either use medicine or you use meditation or breath work, and you are able to pause long enough, you're having your atoms, literally that part of you, go into the void, into emptiness or nothingness, with no return of how you used to react, meaning it's coming back with totally new information. So when you buy yourself a few breaths in your reaction, you're literally resetting yourself and going away and coming back out from a completely different version of you in a different time and space. So if 30 seconds went by, it's a totally different time, and now you're in a totally different space. So that was a really nerdy way of explaining that as we get more and more scientific about what is happening with our bodies and what are we really, it's interesting to think that time, just a little bit of time and a little bit of space, you can return as a completely different person. And in fact, maybe even allowing an openness to you that can allow the full expression of who you really are, maybe a more authentic expression of who you are, which then brings us to that study that most people have seen now around authenticity being the highest vibration, even above love. And so if you can create space in your life, which is the whole point in plant medicine, it's the whole point in meditation, it's the whole point in integration, it's the whole point in breath work, creating enough space for you to return with openness and expansiveness. And from that, if you can sit in that for a minute, you'll begin to hear a different version of you, a more authentic expression of you.
Mm-hmm.
And the key to that would then be to express that instead of the old pattern. And so I think that's a part of integration as well, but it's also part of the work, right? Whether you're doing plant medicine or not,
Mm-hmm.
creating space in times where you didn't used to create space to access a different time and a different expression.
Mm-hmm.
And when you practice that enough times, I am a completely different person than I was 8.5 years ago. Completely
Mm-hmm.
different. I don't just mean because every 7-year cycles are new cells.
Yeah.
I mean the cells in me are completely new and completely programmed with a different version of who I used to be. And it is potent. It is such a blessing to have been given that gift and to participate in all kinds of modalities that brought us there.
Do you feel like you're the same person that you were 6 months ago?
I mean, in all honesty, we're not really the same person we were 2 seconds ago, right? It's always an expansive state. So not really. And that's not always beautiful and spiritual, right? Right.
Yeah.
In March of this year, as for many people who are open and experiencing things and receiving things, if you're a deep empath or you're just aware, it was hard. March of this year had a lot of energy going on, and I didn't need to understand it. I just needed to accept it. And I was heavy. I was angry. I was frustrated. I was all the things. And so it changes all the time. I mean, I am, as a whole being, I am expansive. I love that idea of this moment unfolding into the next, and I can deeply feel that in my experience when I'm present. But we all get lost in our mind, and we all fall off that fine line that we're walking, right? And I've just learned to enjoy the falling off as much as being on.
Yeah.
And so lately I haven't been on as much as I used to be. And I think there's a reason for that. I've come back to my human body, and I'm really, really deeply integrating into this life and this life form so much of what I've learned in those different realms, different dimensions, and different planes of the universe. That's not easy because the world's not reacting the way we want it to. My partner's not. I mean, there's just the mirroring effect on a consistent basis. And so when we can return to what we talked about originally, that deep breath, and recognize that the darkest part of this planet is still me, that's when I get most aligned, but I don't always show up well.
Yeah. I'd like to touch on the falling off part, as you say, because when you talk about a plant medicine journey and say somebody, walk through fire in their journey, and then they come out and they find expansiveness and they find God and they find love for others and love for themselves. What you're saying is we don't need to walk down the old path and tell that story. Let's just sit with the love and the expansiveness and love for others and love for self. And that can be the integration, like sitting in that. But I want to talk about sitting in the falling off. It's easy to sit in that. And it's easy to, that's maybe an easier path is, okay, well, we don't need to tell an old story. Let's sit in this expansiveness. But like, let's sit in the shit of it, right? When we're feeling like shit and everything's not in alignment and things are going wrong, and maybe we're experiencing anger or frustration or grief or sadness, then how do we sit in that?
Things are cliche because they're probably true, right? Many things. There's a saying that I'm sure most of your listeners have heard, which is what you resist persists. You hear from the teachings of Buddha and Buddhism and Hinduism that suffering is a part of our journey on this planet. Resistance is the catalyst to suffering. So anything we push away instead of embrace and expand into, for whatever reason, whatever coding coded us, when we hide, when we push away from those darkest places, that is what leads to the density of our experience. So the gene keys, if I know you know of them, they're somewhat integrated with human design and all the other things. They talk of shadow states, gift states, and citic states. The shadow state is the dense part of the human experience and human consciousness. The gift is like the lighter version, and the citic state is the thing that you can't attain. It is not something that you earn. It's just something that people break through on occasion. The Christ frequency, the Buddhic frequency, on occasion you cross frequencies and somebody pops into what we would call true enlightenment. I dance, and we all dance between the shadows and the gifts, right? You can move through those things through contemplative spaces, through awareness. You can move and dance between the shadow and the gift. Shadow is an important aspect of our coding here in duality. It's the yin and the yang, of masculine and feminine, right? And I am extremely convinced that most of the darkness we see on the planet was the shift into the pursuit of the lightness or the enlightenment, which then judged the shadow states. So let's look at sexuality as an example. A person who represses sexuality is eventually going to snap one way or the other, right? And when we see the darkness that happens on this planet and some of the conversations happening on our planet right now with these things called the Epstein files, that whole world is a world of suppressed sexuality being expressed in dark states in human consciousness because they couldn't talk to anybody or couldn't sit with their true desires and express them without judgment. So it's the anchoring of the judgment layered with all of the outward judgment that would have been placed, or they thought would have been placed on them for their deepest, darkest desires, that the suppression of that, the resistance of that then led to the outcome of horrendous acts, right? War is the same consequence. It's the idea of protecting tribe. It's the idea of getting really, really dense around my tribe is right, you are wrong. My religion is right, you are wrong. And that density, that intensity of not looking at the expansiveness of we're all saying the same thing. If you just sit in what you're trying to fight against long enough, who you're trying to protect, you're realizing you're trying to protect all of humanity, not just your tribe. When you sit in it long enough and you don't resist it, you end up on the other side of that equation, which is you lighten up about it all, you take it less serious. And out of the less seriousness, you begin to understand that there is a unification of this entire game. When you resist it, you push it down, you push it down. Now you're dancing in the shadows, but you're constantly creating more and more density. It's like packing in mud, right? And eventually something has to break. And unfortunately, it's usually a consequence of something exterior to you breaking and then you facing the consequences of that harm that came out. And so what you're asking is, what does it mean to sit in this, to be with this? We fear it because we could go back to, let's hypothetically say our version of evolution is accurate. We came out of the ocean. Well, we came from the darkest of the dark towards the light. Right? If we just look at that analogy, it explains why we might have a coding to want to be in light, photosynthetic aspect of our nature, because as we left the deep dark ocean, and we move towards light, that's a desire. It's an inherent desire in us, a coded desire in us. Well, that got translated through time and the need to survive in really interesting ways. And so today, when we just recognize that darkness isn't this scary place, it's actually equally as beautiful as the light. And you can sit in that and honor that part of you and express that part of you unapologetically. you're not creating resistance anymore. And all of a sudden you're dancing within that yin and the yang, and you're dancing between the shadow and the light, and everything becomes less intense and less serious. You're not packing it down and hiding it and then needing to lie about it and compounding that effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is such a beautiful thing to be in those deep, 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 dark places. In the beginning, I'll be transparent with you, it's not that beautiful. Actually,
Not.
it can be very, very intense.
Yeah.
Sometimes seemingly intense, but when you're actually in it, it isn't, right?
Yeah.
It's the edge. And when you cross that edge to being with it and dancing with it, all of a sudden you might be in it going, whoa, this is, oh, it's nowhere near what I thought it was, right? And you just kind of have this lightness while you're in this deep, dark shadow.
Yeah. I love shadow. I feel like I'm partly a shadow worker moving towards the light, because I think the shadow is where our greatest gifts lie. And my husband and I, we've been playing around with the archetype cards. And so even our most beautiful attributes that we hold have shadow, and we have each in every one of us. And so, yes, by pushing down the shadow and hating it and not liking that part of ourselves and repressing it, it just speaks up louder and louder. But if we can learn to love the shadowy pieces of us and accept them, it's easier said than done. Then there's greatest growth. And so if we can figure out what our triggers are, what makes us angry, why we fire off at something little and we have like a big, huge, strong reaction. And if we can really dive into that, and I always like to say with curiosity, let's get just curious about it, right? Not that it's good or bad, but let's just get curious about it. And when we can dig down into the curiosity and figure out, it's definitely like a deeper root, usually from childhood or something like that. When we figure out the path and the origin of it and have some greater understanding of it, then we're able to move through it. And so, yes, like avoidance is definitely not a technique that works at all.
I do find that there's a balance in this, right? There's kind of the edge of that psychological aspect of what am I needing to face. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes you need to sit in the thing that you know you experienced. My point of reference around this, however, is sometimes you might be just dancing and feel like you need to cry, and you begin to just push those tears away. Or you cry and then you ask yourself one of the least empowering questions you could ask, which is why? Why is not a very useful tool. And part of the reason is when your body is saying we need to move some energy and we need to let this go now, and you move your body, you do yin, you meditate, you do breath work, a lot of those things will start to release that. Plant medicine definitely does as well. And as you release it, we have a tendency to want to know what we just let go of, even though it came out willingly. The fun analogy is in witness testimony in courtrooms, we've been deciding as a collective whole that we are using witness testimony less and less, because now we have lots of cameras everywhere. And when you have a camera in the courtroom and you have 20 people who also said they saw what happened, all of their stories are different, and it's all different than the camera showed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the same thing happens with us. What we think we're releasing in our body, we may attribute that release to something that wasn't really what we're releasing. So I may have had trauma with my dad as an example, but I just recently lost a dog. Now, if I'm crying out of nowhere and it's this deep, 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 profound crying, and I think it's bigger than what the dog was, and I attach it to the loss of my father, then I'm reconnecting emotion to something that might have already been healed or maybe never be healed. We don't know, but it was the wrong witness. Does that make sense? So I actually have found so profoundly when working with people that if we can just put ourselves in positions that actually release the energy itself that is dormant and stuck, shed what needs to be shed, however you're going to shed it, purging, tears, laughter. I blissed out on joy when I was doing yin yoga and I finally got past my stuckness. My hips were carrying and trapping true bliss, because as a young age, I was constantly told, and in places and environments where there was business going on or at church or whatever, shh, and it was very kind, and they were just constantly telling me to be quiet because I'm disruptive, right? So I
Hmm.
was trapping all this joy in my body. I had no idea. And so I released it, right? And so
Yeah.
who knows what you're going to let go of when you can get that body moving, when you can get that breath moving, when you can use these tools to really move the body. And I've found just not trying to attach anything to it
Yeah.
is most conducive to actually letting it go and letting it be permanent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking of an example for myself recently where somebody triggered me and they sent me a text message, and it was like, my analogy is like shit covered in flowers. So it was very mean and aggressive and unkind, but they put all the spiritual floral words
Uh-huh.
over it, and it had an intent to harm. And so I sat with it, and I had like a huge reaction, and I'm like, what in the world is this reaction? And when I sat with it, it was something that was familiar around my dynamic with my mom when I was a kid. And I was able to trace back why I was having such an intense reaction, and it helped me move through it really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a lot of clarity around it about, okay, this is my trigger. This is why it triggered me. This is like, I'm holding a boundary here.
Mm-hmm.
From now on, from moving forward, nobody's going to be able to silence me in this way. And so for me personally, I find that being able to figure when my reaction is so big compared to how I feel like it, quote, should be, tracing it back further and down a path of when I was younger helps me permanently, um, like understand it and release it, and
Mm-hmm.
then set boundaries for myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely, if you know what it is, there's an importance of revisiting that and kind of severing that tie
Mhm.
for sure. I think that's crucial. And those are, yeah, those mom and dad strands are pretty strong, aren't they?
Yeah.
When you experience it. And on the flip side, I've never been more triggered than I have in the spiritual community,
Yeah.
which is kind of
Interesting.
fun and ironic, right? And it just is. It's just such a fun mirror to play in, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, am I really doing the work, or is this like
Mhm.
nonsense to me?
I bet
And
it's what I said about shit covered in flowers. You're like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I do, and I've been guilty of it on my end and projecting that, and that I guess they call it spiritual bypassing, and there's a dismissiveness that can happen when you put yourself out there and you begin to understand this aspect that we touched on earlier, which is the pointlessness of it all, right?
Mhm.
And the trust. And so it can be somewhat dismissive to how somebody's really feeling in that particular moment instead of honoring how that is. And I very much am that way. And simultaneously, just some of this kumbaya stuff, man, holding around, sitting around and holding hands, but then not really doing the work when it comes to like their triggers or when they're out in the world trying to the judgment that comes from the spiritual community is fascinating to me. And as there's a righteousness from all angles. It doesn't matter if it's religion or woo woo or wherever you are. When we reach a certain point of our journey where we think we know, that's a very interesting place where we usually end up starting from scratch all over again. And I've been there too.
Yeah. And when you're saying that, the word dualism comes to me, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm better than you, and so we are separate, versus what you were talking about in the beginning, where it's oneness. Where if you were to trigger me, and like, say I just couldn't stand this certain thing about you, and every time I thought about Devon, I'm like, oh, I can't stand that. If I were to look at it, it's something in me that I
Uh-huh.
haven't actually like acknowledged yet, because I wouldn't have such a strong reaction. So if you're really, I'm like, Devon's, I don't know, if it's egotistical and I'm like, ah, then if I were to
Mm-hmm.
sit with it and really sit with it, then it's like, oh, I am too. And I haven't owned that yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And it really is this fun balance, right? I've had so often, I have had clients who have come to me from Insight Timer who were like, I listened to your first 2 lives and I was so triggered by you. I was telling everybody you're just a big a-hole,
Yeah.
but I had to come back. And finally by
Interesting.
the 3rd or 4th session, on these lives, they're like, something just unlocked and I don't know what unlocked. And that's less of a reflection of me versus I have to be willing to push that edge sometimes. Right? I have to find that edge for me, that if I can hold love and know that love is a state while not trying to accommodate for a room with 300 people in it and all the sensitivities that might be there. And if I'm doing a reading for somebody and I need to dial in on this, I've got to speak what's there for me. And I can feel the difference from where that is. And it is sharp sometimes, right? And so there's this interesting balance between all of this, where do you say the thing that might hurt temporarily to where there's expansion afterwards? Or do you hold back because this person may not be triggered that I'm actually working with, but somebody in the audience is, and then you end up getting all the messages and almost kicked off Insight Timer, right? And I'm like, I don't know. And I have to be authentic. I have to be real to what I know, because I know me deeply. And I know that I come off very arrogant sometimes. I come off deeply intense. A part of my gift in this world is my vocal aspect, my throat chakra. And it can be weaponized. And I've experienced that in my past. That's a big change that from 2017 and before, when I was really walking into the world with this authority as a leader in companies that I was running and everything else. But what I spoke was so sharp that people weren't just offended by it, like I could break people with it.
Yeah.
And now to have found such deep, profound love and attempt to experience that on a consistent basis with an intent of service and reminding myself I'm here to serve, not know. I know nothing, but I'm here to serve. And so whatever wants to flow through me flows through me, right? And if I can feel that state in me, it will still sting a little bit, but then the other side of that is so beautiful, right? And so I really do think that we need more transparency, more directness, more boldness. And if I'm on the receiving end of that, or if I'm in observation of that and I feel triggered, it's exactly what you just said. And that is, why am I triggered by something that's not happening to me? Or even if it is happening to me and I'm deeply triggered, I can't change what that person did. I can't blame that person. I can go in and see what's affecting me. And it is a gift for sure, but it is not always fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And you wouldn't be the person you are had you not gone through that experience and learned it in that way either.
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
And
Yeah.
I think the same goes for, I have people might say, oh, Devon, you're so beautiful and you're so enlightened and you're so full of wisdom and you're so eloquent with your speech. And they continue to say that to you. And it's the same aspect of they have that too.
Yeah,
They're just not
that's right.
seeing it yet. If they see it in you, then it's in them.
Yep.
And they're just like, you're like a mirror reflecting back, but they can't see it in themselves yet.
Yeah, that is, and I feel that from you too. It's like our primary goal in the world is to be these mirrors reflecting back their remembering of who they are, right? And I feel it in the core of my core of my core, and I know that's why I'm on this planet, this particular go around. If I've ever been here before, I'm not certain that I've been on Earth before. It's kind of like a vacation for me, so it's all fun, and it does make it easier, right? Like if you call them star seeds or whatever that is, those places I've been on medicine have been way more familiar to me than this particular journey. And for some, that's difficult, right? This is so dense and so hard. But a part of me since I was a kid, I was just looking at things going, whoa, I'm crying. Like, what is this? This is crazy. It's just so fun. And it goes back to that line we're walking, right? And I think there's a word that I have adopted that has been of such great service, right? We use words like grace, but I'm convinced that as a state of consciousness on humanity, we haven't quite understood the depth of grace because it's a very high frequency. The same with joy. both of those are states. They're not emotions. And we don't know on an individual basis, because we don't know on a collective basis what true grace is, but it was brought to us by these entities like Buddha or Krishna or Christ, right? True grace. The closest I found vibrationally as a word is the word allow. We can all kind of feel what allowing looks like. And allowing is easy when it's fun, right?
Yeah,
Allow
totally.
yourself to dance, allow whatever.
Yeah.
But when you fall off that line and you catch yourself in one of these dark places, it goes back to our earlier conversation. How do you deal with it? Allow it. Just allow yourself to be there. Allow whatever just happened to happen. Allow whatever that person's experiencing with you or to you or through you to be there. And that state isn't surrender. Surrender is a word I've always struggled with.
That's
because
the one
the
that
other
was coming to my head.
the other word of surrender is like giving up. And none of us really want to give up, and none of us want to give over to anybody, right? So there's stickiness there. Allow kind of has this like, okay, I am where I am. And I have found when a part of me loves playing with the frequency of communication, because at the end of the day, it's just noise without meaning, unless we attach meaning to it, and we all agree what that meaning is. And when you play with the noise of allow, I've found when I test grace and allow and then surrender, allow has a frequency that seems to be closest to grace.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, as you said that out loud, I'm like, yeah.
And when we can just be in reminder of practice of allow, all of a sudden you can start walking that edge of grace. And grace to me feels like forgiveness in the present moment. They're weapons. They can be used as weapons, not as attack, but like a sword. Forgiveness is like a sword cutting all those cords that have stuck with you, right? The trauma, the stuff. If you can forgive, it acts as a sharp ability to let it go. Grace is a current experience of doing that. And so if I am in a triggered moment, or I am reacting to something, or I am in an experience that I know tomorrow I'm going to need to forgive, but I can step into allow and walk that edge of grace, I can do it now so that I don't have it with me tomorrow.
Yeah. Especially self-forgiveness, right? That's a harder one. But yes, it's the same. It's the same.
Technically, it's all self-forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even what people do to me, when we understand the oneness of it all, I did it to me. Soul to soul, we see each other, and I am no different. And so that was something that I did to me. And when we can view it that way, and we learn the art of self-forgiveness and self-grace, or begin with the state of allowing of self, then the outward projection of that is pretty consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Devon, I love chatting with you.
This is so fun. We could probably do another hour.
We could definitely do like several more hours. How can people connect with you? I'm going to drop all your links in the show notes, but I want you to share with people your offerings and how they can connect. Yeah,
the biggest thing, this is all about service to me. I've done probably 50, 60 podcasts now, and I'm so blessed to A, know you personally, and then B, be invited to this one, because we get to talk a little bit deeper than I do on some of the other podcasts about plant medicine. But it's all for service, right? I'm not really looking for anything in return, but I do have a few things that I think we talked about maybe putting up, where they could click the link to, that will be just opportunities to sit in resonance together. What I mean by that is creating space where we can find that expansiveness. I'll do a few things that bring us out of mind into those expansive states, and vibrationally connecting to a present moment, and doing so where movement wants to flow through you, and creativity wants to flow through you, just expression wants to move through you. So we'll be putting a couple of those together here in late September. I'll send those links over to you. But in general, if you just want to stay in touch and say hi and connect, you can always find me on Instagram. I'm not a big Instagrammer, but I'll answer the messages, which is Devon Kerns, DevonKerns, on Instagram, or the same email address. It's devonkkerns@gmail.com, and just shoot me an email and I always respond. So those are probably the simplest ways.
Awesome. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. I loved every minute of this. It was amazing.
Yeah, same. You're so called to do this. You're such a great light that's bringing all kinds of great education to all of us. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Connected Community Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. I can be found at www.nickyyoga.com, NICKYYYOGA.com. Until I see you again next week, I hope you have a beautiful day.